Hey everybody, it's Megan, also known as Reading with Hot Chocolate, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be reviewing my first read of 2026, The Secret Courtesan by Carrie Chaput. So come on and let's talk about some historical fiction. Alright guys, it's that time. It is the time to talk about my first read of 2026. And I'm going to do my best because I am dealing with the ick that everybody is dealing with. So if this is a little more choppy than normal, it's because I've had to go and get something to drink or blow my nose or cough because we all are feeling this terrible cold business that's been going around. I don't know about where you guys are, but here in Oklahoma, we've gone from like 75 degrees down to like 30 degrees, and it's just wreaking havoc on all of us. So bear with me, and if I sound really stuffy, I'm so sorry, but I'm trying to stay true to my New Year's resolution to make sure I do at least one long form video a week. So here we are. So today I'm going to be talking about The Secret Courtesan, or Courtesan, or I'm not even, I've debated on how to pronounce it 1,000 times, but The Secret Courtesan. No, I still don't like it. Damn it. How do you guys say it? I want to say The Secret Courtesan. I'm going to say courtesan. We're going to go with it. All right. The Secret Courtesan by Carrie Chaput. And I actually received this book as an ARC. And I was so excited because it's historical fiction. And I love historical fiction. While I don't read probably as much of it as I would like to, I have a whole lot over here on my TBR shelf. But sometimes I get lost in the land of romance and I can't get out. But this one I was pretty excited about. And we have dual timelines. So we have our first person that we meet is Dr. Mia Harding, and she was sent to London to authenticate a statue from like 1608, 1609 time frame in Italy. And she is like the expert, like she's the girl. And so they send her over from the US to authenticate it. And she's been there for a couple months. And she just like in her gut is like, this dude did not do this statue. And she can't find any proof anywhere written that he didn't do it. It was found in a garden, buried in a garden. And they're like, this has got to be the guy. Like, he's the only one it could be. And she's just like, I don't think it is. And so they're giving her like a tight deadline to prove it or to authenticate it, really. And she's digging and digging and digging. The guys that she works with are like the epitome of like the toxic work bros. Like they are just like so misogynistic and they just suck basically. And she's just putting up with them till she has to be done with them. So her authenticating the statue is going to get her the promotion that she has been wanting and wanting and wanting, and to get respect in her field, which honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how she doesn't if she's the expert, why are all these guys acting like she's just the coffee girl? Like, it's actually really infuriating to me, but whatever. But she just feels like if she gets this promotion, it'll really give her the leg up that she needs in her own like museum community. So she's doing all that. And then our second timeline is with Sophia. And Sophia is our courtesan. Y'all pick a way you want me to say it. And I will go with it. I don't know which way it is. No way I say it now sounds right, so I have no idea. But she's our character in Italy, and she's with one person. So if you don't know what a courtesan is, they are, how do I say that? They're not a sex worker, but they are. They're owned. She says she's owned. We're going to use her terminology. She says she's owned. So she's kind of like an enslaved sex worker, but she is educated and she gets money and she plays instruments and does art. So she's not like a woman working in a brothel in the era. She is kind of like an arm candy that is a mistress, would be how I would describe her. How people would describe, how I would describe her, how people would describe her in the era. That's probably the best way. Because she is not in a brothel. She is in an estate, in a courthouse, like not a courthouse, but someone that would be like high up. I was thinking like a royal court, but that's not, they did use them too, but that's not what she is in her situation. She's in like a well-respected man's house as his mistress. And she is trying to get to a point where she can do her own art because she is a talented artist, talented painter, and she has a studio, which is unheard of in the era for women. That her, I hate saying the word owner. I hate how it sounds. Her man, person, whatever we want to call him, has kind of funded. And one day she shows up to his house and he's like, hey, by the way, I've sold you to this guy over here. And she's like, the hell? So she's like, okay, I guess I'm going over there now to that house. And comes to find out that she's been purchased to be a new muse for this artist who is struggling. He has made no art worth seeing, and his wife is like power hungry, and she needs him to succeed as an artist to like keep leveling up their social standing. So she's like, hey, I bought you this woman. She's going to be your muse. And if not, then we're going to have an issue. As Mia is doing her research, she starts seeing little pieces of Sophia. And she's like digging through these records and she's like, why is this courtesan mentioned with no name, but like will randomly appear in places, like from visiting dignitaries will comment on like the dark-haired woman that was seen getting into a gondola, and like she's like kind of popping up, but there's like huge gaps. And this was like a business transaction. So there's like tax records of the courtesans and like all these different things. So not being able to track one is an oddity in and of itself because the records were there to be able to know where everybody was. And of course, you know, government, they're going to get their tax money. They want to know who's making money, even in the 1600s. So Maya has one person in her corner, and his name is Noah. And he agrees with her. He's like, I think you're right. I don't think that this artist sculpted this piece. And so the two of them are digging and digging and digging. There's a little bit of a flirtation in there. And they spontaneously decide to go to Italy because they're like, the only way we're going to find the truth is if we go to Italy. Noah and Mia haul off to Italy. Meanwhile, her boss back in the States and the boss of in the museum in Britain are trying to track him down because they're like, just sign the form. Why are you doing all this research? We're right because we said so. Why won't you just sign the damn form and say we're right? So Noah agrees with her, and she thinks a woman did the sculpture because of the features of the woman. And she did this really cool thing, like taking a picture of Noah when he's like being aroused or like flirted with, and then did the same thing, like talked yourself up and had him take a picture of her, and realizing that men and women react differently visually to when they're being like flirted with or like kind of in like an ecstasy state of thought. And they were both like, a woman did this. So they're on their way to Italy, and they really quickly find that there are a lot of people who don't want this secret to get out, right? They just need this form signed, and they've sent people to follow them. And throughout the book, you're going back and forth between Mia and Sophia, like off and on throughout the book. And it is fabulous. I was so in, like I was just dove in. I was like, give me everything. I want to know everything about Sophia. What happens to Sophia? How does the whole thing resolve? Who's chasing them? Why are they chasing them? And I will give a spoiler warning before I give some spoilers. But it was actually so good and such a journey, and I'm so glad I got this arc because I have seen 0% people really talking about this book, and I think that is a shame. I think it is so good, and if you like historical fiction with like a little side of romance, totally dive in. If you want to feel like you've been transported to Italy to, you know, give yourself a little holiday vacation in your brain, this is your book. But let's talk spoilers, shall we? Because I can, and it's my channel, and if you don't want spoilers, then this is your chance to bail. So, the end of this book was gut-wrenching because kind of our villain is the wife of the artist, and she gets offed. No sad day there. She had it coming. And so she's gone. And there's a little bit that a lot that transpires before that. People are on boats, people are off boats. They're kind of all over the place because it's Venice, right? There's canals everywhere. And then we get the Lord that's kind of like the main Lord, that is where the statue was originally found, was in his palazzo. And he is like not having it. Like, he wants this statue, he wants it to be attributed to the artist, all that. And he's not having this. I almost forgot about Antonio. Okay, so Antonio meets Sophia and the sparks fly. Sophia never thought she'd love anybody, and it is like love at first sight, and they're doing their thing on the side, which is illegal. If you're the courtesan, you belong to the person over here, the artist, and the artist really doesn't care, but the artist's wife is pissed. And so when they're doing this sculpture, the one that is found, we have two figures, but they've only found one of the figures in modern time. And Mia realizes that like there was another part to this sculpture. And so they're trying to figure out like who would the other person have been in this sculpture. It had to have been the artist or whatever. And it is not. It is in fact Antonio. But where is the other half? Why are they separated? And that all unfolds in the last 15, 20 pages. And I don't know how much I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you a spoiler. I've already given you a spoiler warning. It's okay. Sophia meets a tragic, terrifying, horrifying end. The owner of the palazzo breaks her statue, beats Antonio to almost death, and throws the Antonio part into the canal, or it falls into the canal. And then this is so barbaric. He ties a weight to the end of Sophia's feet and then throws her alive into the canal. And the last thing she sees is her statue of Antonio, and she meets her end in the canal with half of the statue, which is Antonio, is the love of her life. And Antonio goes on to live, and this is why we have bits and pieces of her story, because he passes the story down through his family. And that is eventually how Mia is able to kind of connect all the dots, because she meets Antonio's ancestors on her hunt. And it is a just insane story of what people will do for power. It's what people will do for love. And it is so good. And I'm going to read a quote that I wrote down, and it's one of my favorites in the book because I feel like it was very timely. And it says, "Truth is the enemy of fragile power." And that's on page 261 if you want to look for it when you're reading. But truth is the enemy of fragile power. And I felt that was so fitting, because all of this mess was for nothing in the end. They wanted to erase her. They wanted her to be forgotten. And all they ended up really doing was sending someone hundreds of years later on a hunt to find her and to bring her story to light. And the reason it happened is because people were being greedy. They wanted to be able to do all these archaeological digs with no oversight. And that's why they so wanted the sign off on this, because it would give them a clear path to go in and be able to just do digs wherever they wanted with no supervision. And they do find Antonio's part of the statue in the canal. The canal was low for some reason, or they were doing an excavation there, and they find the other half. And then they kind of reunite the two pieces. They don't find, obviously, it's hundreds of years later, they don't find any parts of Sophia, because she's long gone at that point. They probably found the weight, the rock there, but they wouldn't really think anything of it, because by then the rope has disintegrated and all of her remains would be gone. But such a good book. I gave it 4.5 stars. And I'm actually so excited because in a couple weeks I get to interview Carrie. So I'll record that and be able to post it here for you guys to watch. And I can't wait to ask her a whole bunch of questions. The book comes out February 10th is the release date. So be on the lookout for that. All right, you guys, that's it for this week's long form video. Next week, I will be talking about the differences between the movie and the book of The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. So I'll see you then. Bye-bye. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss one of my videos.